You know, when we think about India's future, especially with that 2047 goal, that Amrit Kaal idea,
Right.
the real question isn't just about, say, buildings or infrastructure, is it? It's about the people.
Absolutely. The quality of the population that will actually, well, shape that future.
Exactly. So how do we nurture, a truly talented, innovative, resilient population,
Yeah.
like on a massive scale?
That's the core challenge.
And I mean, is it even possible to actively maybe contribute to stronger potential in future generations?
It's a fascinating question, and it's really vital as India moves forward.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We've been looking at
Yeah.
some really intriguing research, actually started by exploring Indian knowledge systems.
Ah, okay. And this research, looking at behavioral genetics, but through that ancient wisdom lens, it really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it?
It does.
How we can maybe foster healthier, brighter, more capable generations.
Right.
And what I find compelling is this idea you mentioned about tapping into natural human processes, our own heritage, you know?
Yes. Not just relying purely on, say, labs and technology.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer that seems to be emerging from this work is, well, it's a pretty powerful yes.
Oh, interesting.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. The key doesn't seem to be just in the latest science, but also in understanding the profound wisdom in our own ancient traditions.
Oh.
I mean, you see so much focus today on IVF, sperm banks, that kind of thing, almost to purely technological effects, right?
Yeah, it's very much focused on the mechanics, the genetics in isolation, maybe.
But this research suggests, well, a different path, more organic maybe, one our ancestors seem to really understand.
That contrast is really striking. Modern tech often zeroes in on the physical, the genetic bits.
Right.
But this exploration of ancient texts, it sounds like it points to a much broader view, where the parents' overall well-being is like super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super important. When you look at the Vedic literature, Shrutis, Smritis, Puranas, Agamas,
Yeah.
there's this consistent theme. It emphasizes the significance of a balanced, harmonious, and this is crucial, emotionally connected interaction between partners.
For creating exceptional human beings, you mean?
Exactly. It's not just the physical act itself, it's the whole context, the whole feeling around it that seems to matter.
And I think it's important, as you said, to clear up misconceptions. Like the Kama Sutra often gets reduced to just...
Position's right. Everyone thinks that.
Yeah. But the research shows it's much more the art of living well.
Precisely. It's so much richer. Vatsyayana's work explores kama, desire, pleasure, but really comprehensively.
Oh, so?
Well, it includes emotional fulfillment, intellectual joys, aesthetics, all pursued thoughtfully alongside, moral duty, dharma, and worldly success, artha.
Okay, so a holistic view of pleasure in life.
Yes, it's really a guide for couples aiming for a deep connection, not just a physical hookup. And that connection, our research strongly suggests, is fundamental.
Fundamental for the family's well-being and maybe even for the children.
Yes, for bringing forth healthy, capable offspring, it's quite profound.
So linking this back, the research is saying the parent's mental and emotional state isn't just a side note, it's foundational.
It really seems to be a really significant foundation for the future health, the productivity, the capability of their children.
Wow. So their mindset, how they handle emotions, their approach to intimacy, focusing on love and connection.
As much as, or maybe even more than, just physical release.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's try to visualize that.
Right. Imagine, say, a picture of chaos, stress, maybe arguments, worry, just unease.
Oh.
Then picture the opposite. Calm, love, genuine affection, peace. Our research, drawing from these ancient insights, suggests the atmosphere during conception, particularly the parent's emotional state, has a huge impact.
And the Kama Sutra interpreted this way underlines that.
It really does. It emphasizes emotional connection, mutual respect, deep understanding between partners as vital.
Harmony of mind and body, you said.
Yes, exactly. Where feelings, love, warmth, they're central.
And it points to specifics. How a man treats his partner, her feelings, their bond, their shared mental state during that intimate act.
These aren't just like nice relationship tips.
No. According to this perspective, they are critical factors. They can influence the actual mental and physical capabilities of future kids.
That feels, yeah, quite different from the standard biological view we often get.
It does. Which leads us nicely into behavioral genetics, which you mentioned is the scientific framework here.
Right. So what exactly does that field study? Can you break it down for us?
Okay, yeah, let's break it down. So behavioral genetics. It's not just about the DNA sequence you inherit, okay?
Okay.
It's the study of how those inherited genes interact with your environment, and that shapes who you become.
And environment here means more than just, like, where you grow up.
Much more. It includes your internal world, too. Thoughts, feelings, stress levels, life experiences, all of it.
Ah, I see.
It's this really complex dance between
Yeah.
nature and nurture, starting even before birth. And the really cutting-edge part is this idea about epigenetics, like little instructions on top of the DNA.
Right, you mentioned that.
That this interaction might affect those markers, and maybe, just maybe, they could be passed down.
Wow. So behavioral genetics tries to understand why we're different, our strengths, vulnerabilities.
Exactly. It asks those big questions. What makes some people extraordinary? What leads others towards maybe negative traits or challenges?
How are emotions and character shaped? What influences us?
Right. And why do some struggle with mental health, for instance? It looks at those inherited tendencies and how life shapes them.
Okay. And this brings us to that Mahabharata example you mentioned.
Yes, a really powerful case study, I think, from ancient India's epic.
The Mahabharata is just packed with such rich stories, and this one with Vyasa and the queens Ambika, Ambalika, and the maid Dasi.
That's the one. It provides a really compelling illustration for what we're discussing.
So set the scene for us.
Okay. So King Vichitravirya dies childless. And according to this ancient practice, niyoga.
Which is a form of levirate marriage.
Correct. Sage Vyasa is called upon to father heirs with the widowed queens. Now, the striking part is how each woman reacts to Vyasa and the resulting children.
Okay, walk us through it.
So first, the maidservant, Dasi, she approaches Vyasa with respect, maybe even devotion.
And the child born was Vidura.
Yes, Vidura, consistently portrayed as incredibly wise, knowledgeable, righteous.
Okay. Then Ambika.
Ambika. Well, she was apparently quite apprehensive about Vyasa's intense appearance. She closed her eyes in fear during their encounter.
And her son was Dhritarashtra.
Who was born blind, yeah.
Okay. And the third.
Ambalika. Her reaction was different. Again, sort of disgust, maybe revulsion. She remained pale, apparently terrified throughout.
And her son was Pandu, described as pale, often unwell.
Exactly. Now look, on the surface,
Right.
it's easy to dismiss this, right? Close your eyes, blind child. Feel disgust, pale child. Feel devotion, wise child.
Yeah, it sounds like a simplistic folk tale almost.
But our research suggests looking deeper. Maybe it's not just a charming story. Maybe it's a profound allegory.
So an allegory for what?
For a core principle of behavioral genetics, perhaps, told in a way that really resonates with human experience.
So the key message, interpreted through this lens, is
That a child's mental, physical, emotional well-being is deeply, intimately connected to the parent's emotional and mental state during conception.
their mood, their feelings.
Yes, and crucially, how they treat each other in that moment. The quality of that intimate connection intended for procreation.
That aligns perfectly with what you were saying about other texts, like the Kama Sutra's underlying philosophy.
Exactly. While it deals with physical intimacy, its core promotes this harmonious sensory experience, rooted in a good relationship.
Where mutual feelings, emotional togetherness are key for fulfillment.
Right. It implicitly supports this idea. The quality of the union, shaped by the mental and emotional state, matters profoundly for the offspring.
Okay, this connection is central. Parental emotions, child characteristics. But the big question arises, how?
How can feelings actually affect biology?
Yeah.
Is there actual science to back this ancient wisdom up?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the exciting thing is, yes, science is increasingly showing us the mechanisms. We hear about nature versus nurture all the time. Genes are roughly a third. Environment, childhood, another big chunk.
Right?
But let's focus on how those parental mental states could biologically impact the child.
And you're saying it happens right at the start, sperm and egg development.
That's where the potential influence begins. Let's take sperm first. Spermatogenesis.
Okay.
It's a continuous process in men. Takes about, 64, 74 days. Starts with the basic stem cells, goes through meiosis, maturation.
Right.
And the key hormone managing this whole factory floor, so to speak, is testosterone. Crucial for sperm quality, quantity, effectiveness.
And here's where the mind-body link comes in strong, I imagine.
Absolutely. Emotions get processed in the brain,
Yeah.
right? Especially in the amygdala.
The brain's threat detector,
Yeah.
essentially. Kind of, yeah. It assesses input, triggers responses. And critically, it talks to the hypothalamus.
The body's main control center for hormones.
Precisely. So think about stress. Amygdala fires up, tells the hypothalamus, which triggers cortisol, adrenaline,
Fight or flight
Right.
hormones.
Useful short term, but chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
High cortisol all the time. That can really mess with reproductive health, including testosterone levels and sperm production.
Okay, so stress hormones are bad for sperm, basically.
Long term, yes, potentially.
Yeah.
But it's not just about stress. There are positive chemicals, too.
Like what?
Well, serotonin, mood, well-being. Dopamine, pleasure, reward, motivation, crucial for feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's oxytocin, the so-called love hormone.
Ah, yes. Bonding, trust.
Exactly. Released by the hypothalamus pituitary, influenced by the amygdala, processing positive social cues. It surges during deep connection, intimacy, caring for a partner.
And this relates to sperm how?
Well, oxytocin plays a role in healthy reproductive function overall. And while the direct link to sperm quality is still being researched, the hormonal pathways are interconnected. Positive emotional states, driven by things like oxytocin release, support a healthier hormonal balance, which likely benefits sperm production indirectly, if not directly.
Okay, that makes sense. A supportive emotional environment creates a supportive biological environment.
You got it. And a very similar interplay happens in women with egg development, oogenesis.
The monthly cycle, right? Regulated by FSH and LH hormones.
Correct. And just like with men, the amygdala processing emotions, especially chronic stress, can throw a wrench in the works.
How so?
Stress triggers cortisol. Cortisol can disrupt the signals from the hypothalamus and pituitary that control FSH and LH release.
Ah, so it messes up the hormonal orchestra needed for the cycle.
Precisely. This can impact egg maturation, the regularity of ovulation, even the quality of the egg itself.
So mirroring the sperm discussion, positive emotional states, bonding, oxytocin, they support healthy egg development.
It seems that way. Positive emotional regulation helps maintain regular cycles, hormonal balance, and likely contributes to better egg quality.
And the flip side, chronic stress, anxiety.
Can lead to irregular cycles, potentially lower egg quality, fertility issues, and importantly for this whole discussion, maybe even those epigenetic changes we talked about, changes that could be passed on.
Which brings us right back to epigenetics. This feels like the bridge, the potential mechanism linking ancient observation with modern biology.
Exactly. It provides a potential scientific explanation. So
Yeah.
when we look back at that Mahabharata story,
Yeah.
it starts to seem less like mythology and more like, well, a symbolic representation of how the body responds at the reproductive level to profound emotions during intimacy.
So let's draw those parallels again, but maybe with the hormones in mind.
Okay, so Dasi's experience, respect, devotion, maybe mutual pleasure. That likely means higher oxytocin, balanced stress hormones, lower cortisol.
Leading potentially to a well-adjusted, healthy child like Fedora, symbolically at least.
Right. Then Ambika dominant fear. That points to high cortisol, the stress response overwhelming everything else.
Which, in the story's symbolism, contributes to a condition affecting well-being, like Dhritarashtra's blindness.
Plausible, symbolically. And Ambika disgust, trauma, maybe coercion even, extreme stress, a cascade of negative hormones.
Potentially manifesting, allegorically, as instability or vulnerability, like Pandu's condition, or the negative outcomes implied in forced encounters.
Precisely. The story powerfully illustrates, in its own way, that the nature of the intercourse, driven by those emotional states, profoundly matters for the offspring.
And epigenetics offers a possible how.
Yes. So remind us again, what is epigenetics simply?
It's basically changes in gene activity without changing the actual DNA code. Think of them like sticky notes or volume controls on your genes.
Good analogy. Little chemical tags, switches. They tell your cells which genes to turn up, turn down, or turn off.
Influencing how our bodies use our genetic blueprint.
And you said various factors influence these epigenetic marks.
Yeah, things like stress, diet, toxins. But also, crucially for our chat, our emotional state.
Okay, and here's the kicker.
The really significant point. There's growing evidence that some of these epigenetic changes occurring in sperm and egg cells might actually be heritable, passed down.
Wow. So the implication is our emotional experiences, especially around conception, could subtly imprint on our child's gene expression.
Potentially, yes. Influencing their predispositions, maybe to certain health conditions, or even behavioral traits. It's subtle, but potentially far-reaching.
Exactly. It's a subtle but maybe very powerful way our experiences shape the biological legacy we pass on.
So bringing this all together, it loops right back to that first question you asked.
Can we simulate a strong gene, or maybe, better put, cultivate a strong foundation for future generations?
And the answer seems to be Well, not by directly editing DNA in a lab, maybe.
Not primarily, no, but perhaps by fostering emotional well-being, strong relationships, conscious connection among young people today.
So, looking towards 2047 for India, nurturing this internal landscape of future parents is actually a vital piece of national development.
It really seems like it could be a crucial piece of the puzzle.
So the big takeaway is this deep, intricate link behavioral genetics, epigenetics, showing this connection between mind, body, and the legacy we pass on.
Absolutely. What's so compelling, for me anyway, is how this modern science seems to echo, even validate, the wisdom in ancient texts, like the Mahabharata, like the Kama Sutra.
When you look past the surface level readings,
Right. See, they were offering guidance for a holistic life.
and the Kama Sutra specifically,
Right.
that art of living well, it really emphasizes that a fulfilling union based on respect, connection, balanced pleasure isn't just for the couple's happiness now.
No, it potentially lays a foundation for the next generation's health and well-being.
It reframes it, doesn't it, from just a sex manual.
To potentially a guide, almost a wisdom text, for young couples wanting strong relationships and healthy, balanced kids, moving beyond just unrestrained lust.
And connecting that back to the big picture, building a stronger India. Nurturing the inner lives, the relationships of future parents, is as critical as building roads or bridges.
It seems that way. Promoting emotional intelligence, healthy relationships, a conscious approach to intimacy based on love, respect.
It empowers them to give the best possible start biologically, emotionally to the next generation.
Exactly, the potential for a truly thriving future India. Maybe a lot of it lies within us in understanding both this cutting-edge science and our timeless wisdom.
It certainly gives us a lot to chew on, this powerful synergy between modern science and ancient insight, and the incredible influence conscious connection might have on shaping who comes next.
It really does. Thank you for exploring all this with me today. It's definitely been a deep dive with some pretty profound implications as we look ahead.